Welcome, everybody, to the Technical Debt Trap. The talk today, we will talk about, as you can imagine, about how to deal with existing bad code and build good code while the conditions are not ideal. Maybe you get pressure to deliver new features. The talk will not be technical. The most technical we show is a little data structure JSON, just so we can build a hypothetical feature together. It is therefore targeted to bridge the gap between engineering and product, even if there's mostly engineers in the audience, right? You can bring this home. So you might be thinking another, high-level talk that doesn't really tell us much of anything. Well, we'll try to give specific points that apply to any organization, and you can bring home. So who we are, my co-speaker, Eddie. Eddie and I work for Shootflix. We'll get to that in a second. He's an agile coach there, and I am Sergio, or Sergi. I'm an engineering manager there. So what is Shootflix? Shootflix is a decentralized logistics platform. What does that mean? Well, just like Uber ships people, but they don't own vehicles, we ship goods, but we don't own vehicles. You book orders through us. It is an existing product. We have a big volume already in Germany and are expanding internationally soon. We want to be the logistics platform, generically speaking. With the map on the left is some of our partners and carriers. We have thousands of orders going around in every given moment. All right, so just a little catch-up. What do we mean by technical debt, right? So technical debt, super skimming the surface, right? Super summary is when in product development, in engineering, we leave something behind that we know has to be built better for whatever reason. Common one is we don't have more time and we need the money today. Could be there's also a critical bug, something's on fire. Maybe your users can't access the application. You need to fix it now with a little patch. You know it's not good enough, you come later to fix it. You owe it to the platform. That is your debt, your technical debt. Most of you knew it, now everybody knows it, what we mean. All right.
So just before we continue, let's see, who are engineers here? Just a hand up. OK, so most of you. Who are product owners here?
There's
one
like
product owner.
One in the back, yeah.
All right, OK.
Like 3, 4, yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
OK, so where is the problem? So I think the image kind of describes it, right? It's not often visible when you're coding or working on a product where the problem is. But technical debt is like this boulder that you build. It gets bigger and bigger. You need more power, more force. Eventually, it's so big that you're so slow to move forward. Next slide.
The problem is that you're not shipping the boulder, right? The boulder is preventing you from actually making any progress, right?
So if we know, one back. If we know this is a problem, why do we keep creating it? Why do we create technical debt? So I would argue that if you're a software engineer, if you accept this profession, by default, you've already created technical debt before you even touch the keyboard. So it doesn't matter if you work in a waterfall model or in an agile model, but for today's purpose, let's focus on the agile model, right? If you're working in an agile model, you build an increment of your product, you ship it to your users, they give you feedback. What does that mean? It means we have no idea how the feature is going to evolve. What in turn that means is that you have no idea how your work is going to evolve. So by default, you've already created technical debt. It's not a bad thing. It's just something you're creating by default.
All right, so let's prove this, right? We're going to do a little exercise together where we build a hypothetical feature very quickly. And the way we will do that is by assembling the payload that represents this feature. It will be a little JSON object, and we'll build it together based on these feature requirements right here, right? So something that hits very close to home for us and some of our colleagues in the audience, we will build a hypothetical, right? Ride-hailing transport order. So imagine we're building a shipment app, and we want to click the button, and an order is placed. What does that look technically? That's what we'll build. So our folks from product come to us and specify some feature requirements. They say, hey, number one, the user should be able to order a taxi. The user should also be able to input themselves a pickup and destination point, A point, B point for the transportation. A driver should be assigned to this ride. The order status should be updated throughout the ride so the user can have peace of mind. And lastly, we know the distance, we know the price in advance. Simple feature. We start with an object, those non-technical, this is an object, property, values. So we need an ID to differentiate it, nothing new. We need a starting point, basic, the simplest, coordinates. We need destination coordinates, a driver ID, I guess, not important, just bear with me. Then the client ID, because somebody ordered this. It could reference a user somewhere. I know they are the same IDs. I just didn't bother to change them. And actually, the coordinates, both of them take you from here to Brandenburger Gate. I don't know, just because. And of course, we need a status. We don't know what we'll do with that. We wanted a status from the feature requirements and the price. Right, we've done it. We've built a feature. But of course, we want to iterate product once more. They want to extend the functionality. Now they say, next big thing for our company is we want to share the ride. So you should be able to ride with a friend, drop them along the way, share the price.
And we want to do that, right? Because, you know, we're going home from a club. We don't want to leave a friend, especially female friend, drunk like us, like you probably did last night. I don't know. Seems like these talks are popular this afternoon. So I think you relate to what we're talking about.
It was a good party that was organized last night. So the new feature requirement is a user should be able to add, instead of one, multiple destination points. Well, there's a problem. Right? We did not account for multiple destination points. So we could just hack it together if there was pressure and say, well, we just add another property. The point is, it's not infinitely scalable. You just have one middle point. What if you want to drop out two friends? All right, now we know what's required of us. Now we can build better. We make it a list. For now, it's empty. We put in the coordinates. You could put in multiple ones. So we're done. No, says the product. The product is ambitious. This is what happens every time in tech. They come back, they say, now we want to rent scooters and bicycles. Therefore, the new feature requirements. A user should be able to find on their own and unlock scooters and bicycles. The user should be able to freely ride this vehicle and lock it again. And the user would be charged at the end, because now we don't know where they're going, right? We don't know what the price would be. More problems that we did not see coming. We created technical debt. It was unavoidable. You cannot plan forever without building something to try to avoid these problems, right? You will create technical debt. But we're not done yet. They've gone mad. They want our drivers to deliver food now because we have drivers and sometimes they're not doing anything. So let's deliver food. Now the driver should be able to accept an order.
The capitalists, right? There's always more we can do.
Exactly. Manage your assets efficiently. So the driver should be able to accept an order. The driver sees a pickup and delivery location, and the driver should confirm that they've picked it up, right? You get the point. We cannot predict where it's going.
Okay. So is technical debt unavoidable? I think that's a good question, right? Is it unavoidable? when Sergio and I were crafting this was one of the key things we wanted to leave people with here. If we pause at this point, I just wonder what you would say. Say, what's your name? Is technical debt unavoidable, Marvin? Yes, right? So it makes sense. But the point is, how much is too much technical debt? So the same way that we're building our features and we're evolving them, we want to think about our code as feature. We want to stand for our code and say, if the features are going to evolve, we also want our code to evolve.
Right, so now we know it's unavoidable, and so the problem is not creating it, right? I guess the problem is not fixing it after. Right, so then I like to think, yes, the problem is not fixing it after, and I like to think of this as a life cycle, right? To keep it in check, to keep it under wraps, right? So that it doesn't snowball, so the boulder, doesn't, get out of control. We're dragging a boulder. This whole talk, we're just dragging a boulder behind us, huh? That's technical debt. So and this is key, right? This is the point of this talk, right? This is that slide, yeah? You should embed technical debt fixing within your feature cycle. We all sort of know it. You plan it, you build it, you test it, you ship it, right? Something along those lines. Now, embed solving technical debt into that. A feature comes from product. We know what we have to build. But this will not be the first feature. There's only one feature that is the first one. Every other one is infinitely more likely to be the next thing, right? So every single time, we'll not be building the next feature. We will not have predicted what we had to build, technically. Number two, then we fix that technical debt. This is not we implement the feature that was specified. We ignore the feature that was specified. We use it as the requirements for the tech. We flatten the way forward. Once we're good to go, we don't have a boulder behind us. Number three, we start building. All right, that's it. Well, no. Start building in a simple way. Be aware of what's an assumption and what you know is needed. I love tech. I love my job. I could spend hours into something that I just love to build, but it might not be needed. Understand whether it's an assumption that it might be needed or whether you're certain that it will be needed. And only build that which is needed. You are building a product with your code. It is a minimum viable product. And you leave any potential technical debt, assumed or known, for the feature that comes after. Because that's step number 4. The cycle repeats itself. Product specifies a new feature. You're like, oh, well, you saw it before, right? Oh, I didn't account for this. Well, only then spend the time to fix it. Because if you did it before, it could be that the next feature was not what you expected, right? Quick note here, you might see in the slide. Of course, it's important to know where the roadmap is going. Features sometimes come in bundles. You might have one task, one specified Jira ticket, but you know what the next one is. We're not talking about that, right? Prepare your way for the next ones. It is about product evolution, right? Flatten the way forward. Right, so I guess we're done here, and thank you so much. Well, not so easy, right? This is in theory.
Oh, wait, I thought we were done.
I mean, this will be in an ideal world, right? Ideal circumstances, thank you so much for the talk. But in reality, we already knew this. Most of us did already know that, right? So how do we make it happen in practice, right? What are the challenges between us and this beautiful methodology that sort of we already knew?
Okay. Why can't we just take the time? Why can't we just stop the machine, take the time, fix the technical debt, right? No new features. That's all we're going to do. If only it was that easy, right? But we know that there are 3 common problems. You know these problems. These are kind of like patterns. So firstly, and most of you have faced this, you want to take the time, fix your technical debt so that things are a little bit easier, a little faster for you. But products say, hey, you're taking too much time away from new feature development. That's not what we pay you for. Some of them say, okay, fine, you take the time, you fix it. You start taking the time, you're fixing it. And then they say, but now you're slower than ever before. So surely you are fixing the most technical debt that's ever been invented. What the hell are you doing? And third, which is not third here, but just imagine there's a 3.
I just saw it. This got screwed in
What happened,
exporting the
Seju?
talk. It's good. It's good. It's fine.
So, and third, and this is the key part, right? The key part is the engineers, we as engineers built it, so we might not have the skills to fix it. I'm not talking about technical skills. That you guys have in abundance. That might not be the problem. We built it this way because we didn't know any other way of building it.
Something that we should clarify, the difference between point number 1 and number 1 again, because I messed up the slides, but it's point number 2, is that in point number 1, product says, what technical debt you build user value, right? New features. And it already works. I can touch it. It's working. Why would you fix something that works? And in point number 2, or number 2, is that, okay, you've explained to me technical debt. I just don't understand why now we're just building less things, right? Like, shouldn't this be a higher priority over than that, right? It's that argument, that finding the middle ground, right? That's the difference between those 2 points. That sounds sort of similar.
Don't you just love pictures? They say the whole thing, right? So let's deep dive. Taking time away from features. So you've had this before. Tech is a tool. You don't just do tech for the sake of tech. You do tech because you want to use it as a tool to solve a problem. But the truth is, you're here, right? And if you were to invest a little bit your time, perhaps you might have a functioning bicycle. Point number 2. Like I said, if you do end up investing your time. So it's a bit like this. It's a bit like this. Imagine you're running a marathon. As you're running this or training for a marathon, you sprain your ankle, but then you continue to do the same training with a sprained ankle. So that's the case here. What if we don't know how to build it better? What if we don't know? I mean, technically we know how to write code, but what if we don't know how to build it better? The point here is we want to take the time to look at what is it that we don't have as engineers. Do we know our clean code practices? Do we know well enough? Are we product-minded enough? And most importantly, my personal favorite is, are we empowered to drive decision-making change? You might have everything that you need, but you might just not be empowered. You've tried before, you've said to product, hey, this is not working. They haven't listened to you, so now you just kept your mouth shut, right?
We all know that extremely smart engineer, we know it's extremely smart, or her, and then you sit in meetings, you quiet all the time. And it's like every time you speak, you say the smartest thing, but it's so hard to get you to speak, right?
Not you, Sergio.
Not me, I just speak all the time. That's what he's saying, which is true. Right, so the point here is that if you don't have a mindset of continuous learning, you will always have technical debt, right? Because we are also a constraint, and tech keeps evolving. Right, so let's quickly recap, right? So what is technical debt? We learned why it is a problem. We learned why we created despite being a problem. We learned what we need to do to solve it, but we also learned why it's not so easy within real life organizations, right? Not in a lab with perfect environment, but in real life organizations. There's more points to those 3 that we presented, but those are roughly applicable to every organization, right? So the outcome. How do we fix those problems? Let's talk about engineering culture. We've been pointing fingers at product. Maybe we should look at us now.
Yeah, I love to do that.
I love to do that. It's so easy. Easier than coding.
Yeah, pointing a finger doesn't take much effort, right? It starts at 5 years old. Like, we have PhDs at doing that.
Right, so the best way to avoid technical debt, don't create it to begin with. This means empowering engineers. I know you've heard this word like 20 trillion times. Cultural advocates, empower people. No, but for real, I gave you an example. You know, I have some of the smartest engineers in my team, and I just need them to take decisions. I cannot take the decisions. I need you to put in practice what you know, right? That is a learning skill, right? We need to learn how to do that. And if you're not an engineer manager or a tech lead here listening to this, well, look at yourself, you know? Maybe there's something there you can do better. Of course, there might be the bottleneck of product saying, yeah, but I mean, you know, you're telling me you're going to spend time on this other thing. Well, make sure we take engineering-driven decisions, right? Product to what product does best, roadmap and innovation for the product, tech to what tech does best. Implementation details. Product specifies the outcome, not the implementation. Easy in practice, fight for that culture, right?
So, I mean, we don't have many product people here, just one. But the question here is, what if you were given all the power? What if you were given all the decision-making power? Could you be trusted? And I think if you're working in an, I don't like to use this a lot just because it's part of my title, but if you're working in an agile company or a company that's trying to be agile, what you want is to train every engineer to be like a mini startup founder, to train yourself to be like a mini startup founder. If you had all the decision-making power, how would you use that power? So engineers need to learn about product. If you can't trust their skills, you need to learn about how they think. If it turns out that they actually don't think first about product, then what you want to do is invest in training them. In the fast-moving world that we're in today, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work to just be somebody like the 104 days where you just take the commands. You know, you sit there, you take the commands, and then you monkey type. That just doesn't work.
So it is, if you want to be fast and iterative, it is impossible to not have not just engineers, just anybody in the organization, including HR, finance. You cannot have them not taking decisions because you're never going to be able to specify everything they have to do, right? So the more invested they are, the more they are proud of what they do, the more ownership they have, the better decisions they will take, right? Right now we can do this little exercise, which I sometimes have to do on myself, right? When I'm like burning out. I joined the company, I have a luxury, because I joined the company because I believe in the mission, right? And sometimes I stop myself when I want to, turn on Netflix or something, and I ask myself, would the CEO turn on Netflix? Well, he founded the company, so I guess he really believes in it. What is the percentage of how much I believe in this company existing out there in the real world?
Yes, and would the CEO keep quiet about something that's really important? I know you wouldn't.
I wouldn't, but So ask yourself, are you taking decisions for this company, right? Or if you're an engineering manager, do I have entrepreneurs that I might not agree with, but will look for the best interest of this company, or NGO, or little side project, right? That is what this means. Not just, I take specified tasks, I use these little hands of mine to type it in, right? Because not everything can be specified. So the key slide number 2 of this talk. We saw what it would be ideally. Now we see what I call the new engineering mindset, right? Or the engineering mindset that we strive to have. Now this gets a bit nerdy. Just bear with me for a second, right? These points are important to listen to. Design your architecture, your software, like a product designer or graphic designer designs the system. When they are asked in product to put in a new feature, they don't just take a new button and like sort of shove it on the last corner that they can fit, right? they move things around. They say, okay, I have the time. I just have to move boxes around. I don't have technical debt, right? I just move it. It's almost free. It's done. We don't do that as engineers because, hey, nobody asked us to do that. New specified task comes in. We see if statement. In these specification points, where you see if statement, we drop them in. The code outputs what we want. But that's not the point. Think of how you should restructure the code so that it is ideally the best solution now. Yeah. Point number 2, which helps with point number 1, API first development, new hot trending thing. But what does this mean? You may have heard it lately. It means that we as engineers understand the lines of code that we write are a product that other technical people interact with, right? Meaning, there's many versions of this. An API is not just an endpoint, right? If I write a script of code, one file of code, what is the exported functions, variables, classes? Are they easily understandable? Is it clear what they do? A trick is write those first, wire it all up in the background later, because this will be clear. I like to give the example of when you integrate with a third-party API, like Google Maps, which we had to do. You don't need to pick up the phone and call Google and say, how did you guys implement this, right? It is code. We can do the same internally, right? Same with classes, the methods that they export. It doesn't matter if it's dirty inside, but build for your colleagues, engineers, right? They don't need to talk to you to use your code, right? So build the shell first. That's a good trick. It's like test-driven development for API, right? Build it first. It doesn't work, and then wire it up in the background. Clean code principles, real quick, any one of them, solid, read books, it doesn't matter. Don't just assume that you hired engineers and because this is trendy that everybody knows it. No, just make sure you implement it. It doesn't have to be my favorite one, which is solid. It could be his favorite one. I don't know.
Solid.
Okay, doesn't count. Okay, doesn't count. You know what I mean, right? Any of them, just follow them. Then next point is, now we get to the producty part, yeah? Identify different business domains. It is intrinsic to building clean code that you know what is a different module, right? I've often raised this, and I've been told, well, I mean, like maybe in Shiflix. It didn't happen in Shiflix, but it's an example. Well, our business domain is we take something from A and ship it to B. We're a shipment company. We got it. I figured it out. No. What I mean is, and you had the spoiler there, so you heard me for nothing, there's many different domains within that. There's maybe the route management, which just calculates the route and says, this is the waypoints you have. You can't just do that. That can be one endpoint away and be completely disconnected from the rest. You will never have to talk to someone other than through that endpoint, right? You could maintain it as long as that endpoint doesn't change. That is its own isolated module. Same with user management or payments. You're like, oh, I'm building payments for the order of shipping A to B. Yes, but what if tomorrow you want to block a part of your app and make it a premium feature? They have to pay you more to unlock that feature of your app. Oh,
or what if you want to outsource that? For example, payment systems. You know, who wants to build that? There's a company just a few meters away called Stripe. So why not have a module that you can completely outsource?
So if you haven't done it yet at your company, get together, product and tech, identify not in product, because it might be mixed in the UI for the user and feel like a unified experience, but in tech, what your business domains are, yeah, or your technical domains are. And then next point, obviously, you have identified them. Now, build them in isolation. That is, do not mix codes, do not have side effects.
In theory.
In theory, aim for this, right? To build in isolation. Otherwise, you will be back to square one, building dependencies, right? And like interconnecting your code. And the last point is, it's almost a little side note, right? It will come important to know what is a generic feature and what is a business feature, something that defines your app. Do you think Shootflix's user management techniques are unique to Shootflix? No, we have a login page. You put email and password. It returns a token, and you're logged in. You send it with every other request. There's services that do that for you. The point is not we want you to use those services. The point is it does not define you. Build it in isolation. It might come in handy later, right? little mind teaser. This is how, following what we just learned, I would have built the original, they've gone mad feature, right? You identify 3 business domains within the shipping A to B or renting a scooter that they were asking us. You have the order, you have the waypoints, and you have the vehicles, right? And you loosely interconnect them. For example, you have waypoints within the order, but the order doesn't get what the endpoints, what the waypoints are. Those are managed by a different team, right? That's your non-changeable API, your interface.
That's me, right? So, as an engineer, how do I make product understand that this is important? So you had us rumbling the past, I don't know, half an hour. But then how do you put this into practice? How do you go back to your company and put this into practice? It's very simple. You just learn how to pitch. There's endless resources on this. There's only one person laughing here, so that makes me a bit concerned. But really, it is that simple. We work, everybody accumulates really great knowledge in the silos that they work in. If you're a back-end engineer, you get so good at it. You know how to create filters on your APIs. If you're a front-end engineer, you know your Tailwind and so on and so forth. You can go on forever. If you're a product owner, you know the product really well. But the point is, these are kind of like knowledge silos. So if you create a pitch, you make it visible what the problem is. What really is the problem? Because otherwise there's a consequence. Most engineers, I guarantee you, you burn out unless you say something. That's just inevitable. So it's not really part of this talk, but learning how to pitch is not something we're very trained in, but it's something that the companies need from us.
So learn to sell good tech back to product. It is the most common discussion wherever I work. We need to do this. I tell product, and product says, it doesn't look like you need it. It looks like you want it, right? But we know it. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling, and it's hard to put it into words as engineers. We just know that we need, this will come back to bite us, yeah? So for example, I have examples there, faster queries. Well, that's clear. That's a low-hanging fruit. You can go and tell to product. Turns out, if the app is faster, it's better for the user. That makes sense. You might get surprised. You might get a no. It's okay to get no's, right?
No's are very important. There's a saying my coach likes to say, after all the no's in the world, there's a yes. And on that yes, the world depends on. So if you're going to pitch, you have to know they're going to say no. But that's okay. It just means maybe they didn't really understand, or maybe that's not the priority right now. But that's a muscle to develop.
Exactly. So it could be that, well, they didn't get you, try again. The reason why they say no, they didn't get you. Or
just don't quit the job, though.
Yeah, just don't quit the job. Or that they got you, and it's like, well, I actually don't want the app to be faster in expense of this new feature. So I was actually wrong. Yeah, that can also happen. It's okay to get no's. But we know that there's user value hidden somewhere here. Pitch it. It will not happen automatically. If you don't share it with them, they'll take the decisions with their knowledge, not with our knowledge. Yeah? It won't happen automatically. It's the point of this entire slide. Right. So that's it. What did we learn today? Beautiful points that don't follow any numbers. Again, because I exported it wrongly. You know how to con yourself. It's fine. You'll survive. You'll survive.
By the way, I just love this. Don't you just love this? We live in Germany. It's like, I don't know about you, but in Germany things have to be perfect. Isn't it great to see an example of something that isn't perfect?
He's messing with me because I did this, yeah? Anyway, okay, so real quick, the epilogue, you summarizing what we learned so that we can get up and be like, I learned something, hopefully, or pretend you learned something. Don't hurt my feelings. So, number one, tech creation is unavoidable. The question is how much tech debt is too much. Number two, companies are fast at the beginning. They slow down the more code they own. That's normal. Don't let anybody panic about it. That's okay, yeah? Three, not all technical debt should be fixed. Don't fix something specially if you will replace it. I think I'm by 4 by now. Prioritize your technical debt. Now we've learned to pitch it. Someone's going to say yes at some point. You'll be happy. You'll dive right into it. No. You're building value at the end of the day. What's more important? Good rule of thumb is, because we've also identified the business domains, we'll go to generic first, specific later. Why? Because you're at product. Product evolves. Specific, defining your business, will change as the company iterates. Generic is just a payments gateway, or it's a login. It will likely stay, right? So fix those first. They are important to how your app works. Next point, I got track of the points by now. On the bottom left there, product should see fixing tech debt as adding user value when it is, but there's a good chance that is the case. So they should see it as an option.
Yes, and unfortunately, that responsibility, guys, it lies on us. The same way product come to us and say, we need to make it easier for our users to log in because they're clicking forgot password all the time. It's our responsibility to educate them on why investing in improving our code is so important.
The reason why this is important, although obvious, is because I did not become an engineer to have to sell things, right? Like, my knowledge is in my head. I just have to build it. Just let me build it, right? I know that's in the ideal world, but it will not happen in the real world. It doesn't matter whether you see yourself as needing to do that, part of your mandate or of your job. It doesn't matter, because it is, right? Like, even if you don't like to do it, we need to do it. Otherwise, the product we're building together will be worse, yeah? So on the top right, next column, it is what we said: foster a culture of good engineering. Take pride on good engineering, right? Don't be okay with shipping, hanging by thread code. No code monkeys. No task-specified task output, right? Take decisions. Train your engineers. Next point: train your engineers on be product-minded. Pitch value to product owners. Next point: moving fast today could cause you to move slow tomorrow. There's something in between the lines of this sentence, which is, they will say, but you were so fast 1 year ago. What happened to us? Well, it could be that we're slow today because we were fast 1 year ago. It could be that that's a fake benchmark. That is not a reliable velocity benchmark.
Yeah, it's a bit like trying to run a 100-meter sprint before stretching. I don't know how many people here run 100-meter sprints, but I guarantee you, if you and I get on a track, I will just beat you because I stretch. I take my time before. Same here with code. Sometimes you just need to slow the fuck down. Really. That's the only way you're going to get faster.
So we should all be aligned when we're building technical debt. That's okay. Sacrifices need to be made. But tomorrow, we should be able to say we took the decision together. Beware of the consequences of bad code. And final point, the reason we call this the technical debt trap is such a human point, really. There's this code, right? There's this product. We're looking at it from two departments. We have tech, and we have product. We're looking at the same data set, the same evidence, and we're seeing different things. We're so biased, both of us, right? They look at the production and they say, you guys are so slow right now, and I know this technical debt thing is important to you, so you obviously are fixing too much technical debt, right? While we are looking at it and saying, we are so slow and we felt so bad that we're not fixing any technical debt at all. They just don't see it because you see we're slow, right? Maybe we should explain to them that if we want to go fast, we need to fix it first and become fast again tomorrow. That's all.
Yes, I think this is just before we conclude. This is the message, right? It's a bit like you came here. Why did you come here? What do we want to leave you with? Technical debt is always going to exist. You're going to create lots of it, but there's a solution. The solution, unfortunately, you might not like me for this, or Sergio, the solution is in the mirror, unfortunately. It is our responsibility as engineers to pitch it to product people why we should improve our code.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio and Eddie. Well, I have brought a few questions for you.
Quite a few questions. That's good. That's
Yeah.
more than I've seen.
Okay, the first question is, it is hard to take humans out of their comfort zone. How did you change your process to ensure that the team takes more responsibility on avoiding adding technical depth?
Right. So I like to think of this as comfortable uncomfort. That is, if you dump someone into a dangerous situation, they'll panic, do nothing. If you take one step at a time, if you reduce the barrier of entry, we can all achieve anything. I mean, with quotes, I cannot fly tomorrow. But you know what I mean? It's comfort and uncomfortable comfort, right? You can shift those words around, which means it's okay to be a little bit outside of the comfort zone as long as it is not too much, because then we will never get started.
Yeah, and I think change is a process, I was just listening to the CTO of Stripe yesterday, and he said, you want to build a company that is honest with itself. In order for people to be honest, the environment has to allow that they are honest. And that's what we're actively working on. Our CTO is here in the talk somewhere. He knows. I go to him and say, I don't think that they are safe to talk. I think that you need to take responsibility for this. And then we laugh about it. We fight about it, but we also laugh about it.
If something is in your to-do list for too long, it is too difficult, break it down into multiple to-dos.
Okay, and the second question is, so the problem isn't in the tech or code itself, but just pitching the solution and getting time to develop it?
I mean, technical depth is intrinsically technical. The problem is in the code. The code doesn't write itself, not yet, maybe in a few years. So to solve the problem, which is indeed in the code, we need to solve us first, yeah? That is the difference. So yes, it is in the code. We added it to the code, but we added it, yeah? So yes, we need to fix ourselves first.
Okay, and the final question is, but we are not entrepreneurs. If we were, we would not be developers. How can that mindset and abilities be forced onto developers?
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
How can that mindset and abilities be forced onto developers?
Yes, okay, I'll take this one. Yeah, it's true, right? We're developers, most of us here. I asked at the beginning who's developers, and I think 98% of the people said, hands up. There is a difference between having an entrepreneurial mindset and choosing to take the risks of an entrepreneur. Having that mindset means educating yourself to zoom out and understand what are the variables that are happening, understanding them, and then making decisions from those zoomed out variables. That's really all that it means.
Yeah, it's to understand that you will take better product decision if you care about the product. You don't have to be at the level of the CEO, right? You just have to know that that is a valuable asset that you could have or your team could have. Yeah, you aim there, even if you fall short, you'll be better off. And there's no forcing onto anybody, right? That's never gonna work. They'll just quit. Yeah.
Well, okay, that's it. Thank you once again, guys. It was a pleasure to have you here.
I would love to hear just from one person in the crowd, just one person, not from Shootflix, just what you're taking away from this. That's it. Anybody, one person. I'll come to you. Thank you. Say your name, please.
My name is Adalbert.
Louder, please.
My name is Adalbert. I think the main thing is learn to pitch. Even if it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.